For this project, we start with a damaged leather jacket. We will be using a product called Leatherique. You can see the damage on this jacket. This is an expensive Italian jacket by Dainese. It has a number of scuffs and scrapes. The colour is also not very modern. The entire jacket is massaged with Rejuvenator. The Rejuvenator restores the suppleness of the leather. We leave this on the jacket for 2 full days. The jacket is left for 2 full days and sometimes covered in a plastic bag. After 2 days, the leather feels greasy. This is then cleaned off with Pristine Clean. Pristine Clean removes any dirt that comes to the surface of the leather. Here we have a hole through the leather. I use PVA glue and some cotton gauze. The gauze is inserted into the cavity using tweezers. The gauze is placed level with the hole. PVA glue seals the gauze in place. This product is used to fill cracks or scuffs. It looks like white paint, but it's very tough. I applied it using a paddle pop stick. Apply it in thin coats and allow it to dry. Apply it to any places that are scuffed. Try to avoid filling in the grain of the leather. The filler can be sanded when it has dried completely. Here's a technique to simulate the leather grain. As you can see, I mix a polyvinyl siloxane impression material. I take an impression of the leather grain. We use cotton gauze pressed into the impression material. And in one set we can peel off the mold of the leather grain. This technique is good if you have the same contour. If you just press the leather into the crack filler, the effect is not as good because it's the opposite. Where there are large bumps, we wet sand them down. I used a sanding block to prevent uneven sanding. If you see low spots, fill them in later with more crack filler. This is similar to body filler on a car, except the filler is flexible. You could wet sand it to achieve the right contour, and then you could later try and apply the grain. Here we can see it's too flat. Here I try and place my rubber mould and tie it to the setting crack filler. The rubber mould tended to be a bit too rigid. The curve of the arm section makes it difficult. Once the crack filler is set, the mould is removed. As you can see, this wasn't After the grain is finished, grab the prepping agent. The jacket is either sanded or scoured with the prepping agent. If you sand it, use 600 grit paper, that's recommended. Here I use a Scotch-Brite pad. This is a grey Scotch-Brite pad from a car paint supplier's. The prepping agent smells like alcohol. A nail brush can also be used to scrub the prepping agent in. Don't drink and drive. If any dirt comes to the surface, this is wiped off with a clean rag. You wipe clean, then apply more prepping agent. The jacket's left to dry. A hairdryer can be used to speed up drying time. This shows the jacket ready for colouring. The large white patches on the right arm were where there were large repairs. Remember that the right elbow had a small hole in it. The inner arm guard is still intact, so the rider is still protected. The scuffs and holes have been filled. Here we're using Leatherique black leather dye. Give it a good shake. I'm dying to show you how this works. Here I mask the logo in case I get dye near it. I use a small paintbrush to apply the dye. The dye is applied in thin coats. This is a thick leather coat though. So apply thin coats even if it is a thick coat. Apply the thin coats of dye and leave to dry. Again, a hairdryer will speed up the process. When dry, the dye looks less glossy. I decided to make most of the jacket black. This makes the jacket look more modern. I blackened the logo on the arm. The logo could later be recolored in white or any other color that you like. Progressive coats are applied. The dye is very flexible and doesn't crack like normal paint. Only about 4 coats were needed to completely hide the other colours. The original black can be touched up. The dye patch-ups don't show up. This is unlike patching black paint, which does show up the touch-ups. Once the dye dries, the sheen is the same as the other parts. The repaired sections will show if they're too smooth though. Small leather scuffs will show the leather isn't not perfect. These imperfections can be crack-filled and touched up later. Here I touch up any original edge scuffs. We remove the masking tape over the logo. Dye needs to be left for 48 hours before the jacket is used. I think it's safe to leave it to dry for a week. If the dye isn't completely dry, it will stick to itself and can be damaged easily. Thanks for watching.